This panel discussion is on BFSI Innovations, Trends and Next Practices, Driving Business Transformation. My honor to call on stage Mr. Ian Campos, Executive Vice President and Global Head of FS Applications at Capgemini. Can we have Ian on stage once again, please? And to be joined on stage by Ms. Sujata Mohan, Senior Executive Vice President, HDFC Bank. Ms. Nikita Tamde, Executive Director, Head of Product for Treasury Services, JP Morgan Chase. Mr. Kajal Ghosh, Independent Director, Utkarsh Small Finance Bank, and Mr. Avinash Kagawa, Evangelist at Zoho Corp.
Well, good morning again. Mr. Ghosh will just join us shortly. He's on his way here. So the discussion we're going to spend some time on this morning is around banking, financial services, and insurance trends, next practices, driving business transformation. I've joined here by an illustrious panel. Mr. Sujata Menon, who's the Senior Executive Vice President of HDFC Bank, with Ms. Nikita Tamde from the Executive Director and Head of Product and Treasury Services at JP Morgan Chase, Mr. Kajal Ghosh, who's the Independent Director of Utkarsh Small Finance Bank, and Mr. Avinash Kagawa, who's the Evangelist for Zoho Corporation. So nice mix of folks over here that we will have a good interaction with. But before we begin, just wanted to set some context, and again, I'm shamelessly going to use our own report and the thought leadership that has been put together for this conference. And focusing a little bit on the current challenges in the Indian consumer banking landscape. Clearly one of the largest banking markets in the world, certainly one of the most diverse, dispersed, and probably complex. And I've had the opportunity to work with banks all the way from Australia to the US. And this banking market truly fascinates me. Not because of where it is and how large it is and what its potential is, but also because of the entire spectrum of customers it deals with, from potentially the largest unbanked sector in the world to possibly, certainly as a diaspora, the Indian community being one of the richest communities in the world. So the services an Indian bank has to provide are vast and varied. So the complexities obviously are fairly large. Today banking is very much a personalized business, and it should be a personalized business. It should feel like a tailored to a person business, but it is challenged by a large degree of lack of automation or automated solutions around personalized servicing. It does cater to a very diverse, the Indian banking sector, to a very diverse market. So the needs are quite different. And for a bank, a large Indian bank that has to cater to all of these, it imposes some significant challenges on the bank. Whether it's from a data security perspective, whether it's from providing personalized services, whether it's from just the reach of where these services needed to be provided. So the operational constructs are significant, which quite often drives a lot of inefficiency in the operations itself. Very complex processes coupled with complex technology landscapes drive for that. So today we're here to discuss a little bit about how Indian banking overcomes some of these challenges, how Indian banking can become far more innovative. I think it's one of the most creative banking sectors in the world. We're known for jugaad. We're known for putting together things that work and work quickly and efficiently. However, Band-Aid over Band-Aid over Band-Aid is not necessarily a recipe for success. It gets things done, but you do need to architect for scale and for success. So enough about me introducing the topic. I might take a moment to ask our panelists to introduce themselves. And we've talked about Gen AI. I think last year about this time, nobody was talking about Gen AI. I'm personally fascinated by it, but I'm on the fence. I don't know whether it is if it is a fad, whether it's overstated, or whether it's truly, truly, truly transformative. So maybe if I ask the panelists just briefly to introduce themselves, maybe starting with you, Mr. Jatha, and perhaps your perspective on Gen AI, fad, overstated, and a complete game changer.
Okay, I'm Sujata Mohan. Working? Yeah, I'm from HDFC Bank. I've got 30 years of experience, and my experience has swung from being in a bank to a technology company to a small bank to now in one of the largest banks in India. My perspective, I run the retail technology for the bank from a solutions perspective. What is my take on Gen AI? I think it is not emphasized enough. I mean, when we keep saying it's a fad, we are not giving it the due importance that needs to be given, because I think it's going to be transformative. And it's going to be transformative at the rank and file level and not really going to be driven by organizations. It's going to be changed through individual players in the industry, people in the world. It's going to change the humankind itself. That's the kind of thing that I believe about Gen AI.
Thanks, Ian. I'm Nikita Tamde. I lead the product development and solutioning team at JP Morgan India, catering to cash management and cross-border payment requirements of large domestic and multinational corporates. When I look and I hear and think about AI, like Sujata mentioned, I don't think it's a fad. I agree with you. It is definitely an emerging technology concept that we all need to be aware of. And I think subconsciously, we are all using it in our day-to-day lives. We may not know the white paper or the business nuances or the tech jargons around it, but somewhere we are all using it. So just to give a personal flavor, I started using a generative AI tool for my vacation planning. And yeah, it's quite interesting. It throws up customized itineraries and recommendations based on my preferences. And it's made anyway, vacations are a pleasant topic, but it's made the whole vacation planning a very enjoyable experience. So yeah, looking forward to see where this takes us, and I'm sure it will be something that maybe 2 or 3 years down the line will be very common, just like internet or mobile banking is today. So yeah, that's my take on AI and generative AI.
How about you, Mr. Kajal?
So, about myself, I am a career banker. I joined State Bank of India in 1978 and have been working in the banking sphere since. Of late, I've been on the board of Utkarsh Small Finance Bank, and also a bank based out of Afghanistan, and advisor to companies like PayU, DataWise and stuff. So, and I've had the privilege of, heading the biggest bank in the IT fields down to one very small bank. Utkarsh is not a very big bank, 20,000 crores balance sheet size. So that about generative AI, so I have been, as she said, we all have been using it, and it is one of the transformative things that has happened. On the journey towards digital, or whatever term you use now, like when we had the core banking come in, when we had other things coming in. So similarly, AI has come in, and it will be there, a part to supplement. A great person like Yuval Noah Harari of Sapiens has said it is going to be a transformative thing in human life, as she was saying. We don't really know, but it will continue to be there, and other things will develop around it. So we all, and a small example of generative AI is ChatGPT I used. When I was coming back from taking a session, I do take sessions at IIMs and IITs and all. So when I was coming from IBM from a session, and I was typing, they said, do you want to use ChatGPT or generative AI to do this for you? What you have spoken about. And it did a wonderful thing. What I had written, it transformed it into a very much richer way of presenting it. So we all use it, and it's going to be helpful, as she said, transformative at many levels. Thank you.
How about you, Mr. Avinash? We'll share a mic.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Avinash. I'm an evangelist with Zoho Corporation. Zoho is into the business of B2B business suite of productivity products on one side, and IT management products that run the B2B business suite of products, productivity products on the other. So there are two sides of Zoho Corp. So that's an interesting question. I personally feel generative AI is about providing access to the users or the citizens at large. But there's a catch to it. You get to have access to various template possibilities of answers you can find on generative AI. So it's like one template over the other, right? So you have multiple templates. It is about us, how do we actually differentiate from that template, right? So that's something, my perspective on generative AI.
Okay, moving on from, I guess, generative AI, and if I can sum up what I'm hearing from you, certainly not a fad. Does definitely have the power to transform, both professionally and personally. And I do use it a lot myself. I've been called the fanatic around it, but personally I use it I love to cook. So I've been writing a recipe book. And the worst part of writing a recipe book is writing recipes. So Gen AI actually generates the basic recipe for me, and I'll tweak it and use it for my own, put my own flavor to it, so to speak. But again, we've been experimenting with it a lot with Capgemini as well. I have been pushing my teams to say, how do you build solutions without writing a single line of code? How do you generate use cases or user stories or user journeys without writing a single line over there? And it's quite powerful, and we've been able to do some of that for unsecured lending, for pet insurance and things like that. So again, I certainly feel it has the power to transform. But moving on from that, let's get back, I guess, to the business of banking. I know often people talk about, banking is a technology business with a banking license. I strongly believe no matter where you go, the fundamentals always matter. And, we've always talked about banking today certainly being built out to be more digital first, more mobile first, certainly in India, more data-driven first. Maybe to you, Ms. Sujata, your bank has been certainly the pioneer in digital banking, not just for India, I think for the rest of the world as well, and has done it quietly and silently, but very efficiently. You've certainly had the opportunity to be a part of that journey. Perhaps you could share what banks, from your experience, what banks should do to enable success, particularly in transforming themselves to be digital first or digital banks, so to speak.
Okay. So I think fundamentally the way things are moving, I think financial services industries don't exist without technology, in the sense that that is literally the oil on which the industries run, basically. So I think growing with the changing landscape of technology is par for the course now for most of us. And one of the things that happens, I have Utkarsh Small Finance Bank, and I worked in a smaller bank before, and now I'm in a large bank. One of the things that is always a challenge is the three modes in which we have to constantly operate, right? You have to run the bank on one hand, you have to keep making changes, and then this transformational aspects come in. And how do you balance all the three is one of the key challenges most of us face. The pivoting areas where transformation is actually leading change for most people, especially in the large banks where they had one round of transformation and were technology led, and they're the second phase of going to the next level of growth or change, I think are some key pivots. One pivot is basically the cloud, which is helping us scale and hyperscale or contract depending on how we want to operate. So that's one pivot. I'm saying that there are many platform kind of changes, and then you have the customer experience change. So I think one big pivoting change that's happening is cloud. The second big pivoting change is data. And there's a lot of focus that we are doing on data, and I guess most banks are doing. The key thing is data is now proliferated. Avinash was speaking about how banks are better placed to do AI, generative AI, because they have more data. But the real key challenge, even with data, is how do you move from a lot of information to insight is actually challenging most of us in thinking to do much better with data governance, data structures, and so on and so forth. The third big thing that I think all of us are dealing with is modernization of our core. So recently in one of the fintech groups, I saw one of the fintech partners or one of some bank representatives saying that I want some new age core banking references. And he had mentioned a few company names saying, I don't want to go to them. Does anybody have a reference? So clearly, even people who are starting out, people who are in large banks have started to think, how do we modernize the core? And that's also another area of focus, is to say that how do you bring out intelligence to the middle, keep the core extremely light so that you're more agile. I think that's another big platform change. And then on top of it comes all the change. And the third big pillar, according to me, is your APIs. Like when I launched API banking in 2015, when I was in RBL, I had to explain what was an API to many people. When I used to go on conversation sales calls to many corporates, I had to explain what API was. Today, I think it's par for the course. Today, people are talking about embedded finance. So API becomes the fourth big platform in terms of what you need to focus on. Now, around that, you build most of your stuff. Things like how do you do customer experience? It is sitting on the intersection of data. How do you use the data to present it through the right channels? How do you use integration models that are possible, and so on, right? So this is how one is thinking through how to modernize your environment. That's one. But I think this is the technology side, but I also want to bring up the fact that success comes from a few other things banks need to do. Many a times, banks get overwhelmed with trying to say that I want to change the front, I want to change my customer experience, etc., but don't simplify processes at the back end, right? And that leads to a lot of customer dissonance, because the back end is not stitched through properly. So customer comes with an expectation that he's going to get something like a click experience, and then you have drops on the floor and so on and so forth. So that's one area of pivot I think most banks should focus on. Even in our bank, we think about it as to how we will do it. The other thing that we notice is that when we are using data and we are using predictability, how do you ensure that you don't overwhelm your customer with constant sales, right? I mean, many times you get unnecessary calls. So how are you there for the customer at the point of sale or the point of requirement? Position the right products without badgering him with information. And that's the other piece, I think, if people start thinking about, there'll be a big difference that will happen in terms of customer experience itself. And I think for a bank like ours, where we are already a reasonably large-scale bank, building all our systems where everything is moving faster, right? Today we talk about 10-second loans in the bank, right? We say instant loan for car loans, which is never happening before. Today we give instant car loans. So the velocity of transactions, the velocity of onboarding, everything has just simply magnified at a very, very large scale. So for us we focus on, at scale, how do you ensure that transactions are taken to its closure even if they drop off? Because I think managing failures is a very important part of digitization, because you can't be sure that your network is always going to work. You cannot be sure that every part of the system in an extremely complexly wired system will work every time. So how do you ensure your drops are managed very efficiently? I think these are the few things that if you focus on, success in digital transformation will become so much better. That's how I would position this.
No, thank you. That's a very wonderful perspective. I think you've covered a lot. It's not about coreless banking, which everybody talks about. It's really right-sizing the core, opening that up with APIs so you can simplify and provide some rich experiences, both for employees as well as your clients, but also the intermediaries or partner ecosystem that you have. And I think you talked about innovation, or rather, I should say, information driving to insight, which really then leads us to, taking that insight and creating innovation out of it. So maybe I'll pivot to you, Ms. Nikita. JP Morgan Chase obviously needs no introduction in the banking sector. And known for a lot of innovative products, a lot of innovative services, particularly in payments and treasury and so on, which is your area of specialization. So maybe if you can take a little bit more time and just kind of share that, how do you bring innovation in from the global capability that JPMC has? But I also believe there's a lot of innovation happening in India that has truly got to be exported as well. So maybe if you can share your experiences with it, and we certainly can learn something from both JPMC, BNP Paribas, and your rich history with doing this.
Sure. So at JP Morgan, we leverage diverse perspectives, data insights, design thinking, and lean agile technologies to drive innovation at scale and maximize the business value. Being a global bank that provides a variety of services across the globe, having deep local expertise and a regulatory connect that helps us navigate a complex landscape like India has definitely benefited us. So we have a regional SMEs that work very closely with our global innovation and technology teams and bring the local context while executing our digital transformation or customer innovation strategies. So while, we do have a lot of our global teams working on new and emerging technologies, be it blockchain, AI, or augmented reality, immersive analysis, etc., it is important that the local teams bring in the local nuances, the regulatory expectations, and then create locally relevant solutions. So what we have seen and what has really worked for us is having these locally relevant solutions that can support the on-ground India business processes and which can then be combined with global best practices and global scale and connectivity is something that our clients really appreciate. So just to give an example, right? JP Morgan is a large bank. We are the leaders in the cross-border clearing space. But for our India clients, we have embedded our global cross-border payment platforms with real-time connectivity with the local regulatory and customs systems. This capability has helped our corporate clients to become completely paperless while processing their cross-border payments, eliminating the tedious tasks of manual documentation, as well as helping them become much faster and efficient in their regulatory compliance. So these kind of solutions is basically what we really hope that we can leverage both our global platforms and local expertise combined with either local in-house developments and strategic partnerships to create a very strong customer value proposition. And like you rightly said, right, I think we are very fortunate that while we are working in a global bank, we are working for a market like India, which is inherently very innovative, right? So it's a very proud moment for us when we tell our global teams that India is the first country to have a 24/7 high-value payment clearing. Like real-time payments everybody has, but not everybody's RTGS is 24/7, right? And that's where the inherent innovation that this market brings gives a lot of food for thought for our product and technology teams. And it helps us to create solutions that are incubated in India, created in India, developed for the India market, and the success that we see in the India market is then exported to some of our other geographies, right? Because there are many markets that are quite similar to our India requirements. So I think that's been, again, a key focus and a key strategy from our side, that we combine both our global capabilities but keep an eye on the local innovative landscape and local emerging trends.
Thank you for that. So certainly innovation at scale with local expertise, but also exporting that local expertise to the rest of the world is actually a very powerful message. So just kind of building on the theme of innovation as we've been talking about, moving to you, Mr. Ghosh. I mean, clearly Utkarsh is a new entrant into this market. It doesn't necessarily have the scale, but to be really competitive, has to drive innovation, personalization, and be truly innovative in products and services as well as the way you address your markets. Maybe if you can take a few minutes and talk about, and I think you have a great opportunity. You've had a clean slate. You're not encumbered by what we would call legacy technology and so on to do this right. And how are you driving that change and that thinking at Utkarsh, or what can a small new entrant bank learn from you?
Thank you so much. So coming to the point of innovation, Utkarsh itself is a creation of innovation. The government of India wanted to go into the unbanked areas and have as many people brought into the banking system, and Utkarsh and other small finance banks came into being through that mode. Now, you see, when you convert from a MFI to a bank, you have to keep innovating just to stay in business. I'll give you examples. For example, a MFI cannot take deposits. So we were borrowing at 16, 17% as an MFI. Now we have to quickly garner deposits to do all the business, because as a bank with a license, you want to do all businesses, in addition to joint liability groups or other loans. Now we have to get deposits, and it's not easy in a competitive market with ICICI, HDFC, SBI, PNB too, because we are going for the same deposits. So initially we end up paying a bit more, but then we have to innovate very fast to give our services in a better fashion so that we can also bring down our rates. Today, one advantage with agricultural lending is that you can earn returns up to 25, 26%. So you can still give a fixed deposit at 9%. But we would like to move, see what happens, you cannot have all your eggs in one basket. You cannot have everything in agriculture. We learned that the hard way in Demon as well as COVID. So now we have also decided to diversify. We have 800 plus branches across 22 states. And for that, we need products like housing loans. So we have to diversify our products. You have to devise new products. And you cannot really compete with the big banks on the normal set of products. So for example, housing. We cannot really give the loans. SBI gives at 6.5%, or HDFC gives at 6%, things like that. So we have to go for the right segment where they are willing to pay a bit more higher interest, but they have difficulties in getting it from banks. You see, we are giving loans to the unbanked. All banks are giving. So what you have to do is use innovation to find out how to identify the person. Now the government of India says 3 lakh income per family. How do you define a family first? How do you know their income? So you have to devise other ways of finding out surrogates, basically to find out what their income is. You have to diversify geographies. Utkarsh was in UP and Bihar. Now we have decided to move across, and it is a challenge because different cultures, different people, different areas have different ways of doing things. So you have to move around and do that. Technology was a big problem because, in fact, even basic accounting was on single entry in an MFI. So to teach the same resources, see, the resources are not as skilled as other bank employees or as employees of other banks, other commercial banks. They are MFIs, they work on the field, and to teach them full computerization stuff and things like that, it is much more difficult. Also resources, we have resource constraints. So getting into all the hardware and the software is difficult. She talked of cloud. Now Utkarsh is going to move most of its things to the cloud because, going forward, we cannot, that is the way going forward. And they are quite, so they have a CRM, Microsoft Dynamics. They have a data lake now. So going forward, they don't have the legacy, so they could move. They did not need a data warehouse. I was running the data warehouse and data for State Bank for 700 million customers on a T+1 basis, transaction +1, which is quite good, as she would agree. And so what happens is here we had, your question was how do I drive? So I'm trying to take them that way. We should have a customer one view of Sujata's account, Sujata's deposits, advances, loans. What is the next best product to sell? So those are the type of things which I'm trying to inculcate in Utkarsh, as well as driving them towards the newest technologies. Core banking is a hard work system, as you said. So we are using a lot of apps. But again, Dr. Saurav said in the beginning that, we should have a standardized. So it starts, and then you start adding on to it. So standardization is not that easy. You start and then you start adding on through APIs, other things. Every area, every customer, everywhere is different. So you have to add things and customize. Maybe at a time one time you can take a call after 10 years to rework the whole thing that the APIs go away and you put everything in the system. But again, APIs will come because you'll have new things coming up all the time. So that's way. And going to hyper personalization, I'm trying to put Utkarsh on that road. A segment of one. Every customer is different, and you can do a customer one view, collecting all the data and putting it into a single page. And then, as I said, there are tools available in the market to tell you what are the next best use cases for that person using big data like Sibyl, as well as, say, electricity bills or Vodafone bills. If somebody is paying 200 rupees Vodafone bills, you won't offer him a Mercedes. Or if somebody is paying 20,000, you won't offer him a scooty. Or if somebody is not paying his bills at all, you would not try to recall the loans you have given. So I'm trying to drive Utkarsh towards the, using analytics and data. They have set up an analytics team. It started. So there's a long way to go, I understand. But the path they are moving is the right path. Thank you.
No, so that's very helpful. So I think what I take of that is, you've certainly got a fairly complex business to run, even though it's a smaller one, and complexity comes in different forms. And I think what you're also trying to do is overcome some of the inefficiencies, deficiencies you have through, codifying the knowledge that you and your bankers and your teams have. For which obviously kind of requires you to have a platform that can deliver these types of capabilities with a kind of an experience-first mindset. So that's a good segue into what we can talk about with you, Mr. Kagawa. Zoho obviously provides not just a platform to banks or insurers, but actually to some of the leading consumer products and retail companies, which are very much experience-driven and certainly drive a lot of personalization and use a lot of data to do that. So maybe if you can kind of share some of the experiences you have with building a platform, scaling a platform, and then, personalizing or customizing or tailoring that platform to various industries. How do banks and insurers kind of learn from what you're doing and what you have codified into that platform?
Great. I, first of all, really appreciate Ian and the organizers in putting a tech person on a bankers panel. It kind of puts IT little indispensable, right, when it comes to, taking innovation on to the next step and so on.
You're the technology, that's the banking license.
Yeah. And drawing from my fellow panelists, there's one thing which is very clear, right? Whatever is difficult, you push it on to the IT side, right? My fellow panelist, Mr. Ghosh was talking about difficult, move it to IT. You need 24/7 RTGS, have it supported by IT. And that reminds me of one more thought process, right? So bankers are now interested with not only with citizens' cash or money, but with also customers' data, because every bank is now being catered by means of an application, right? You did talk about APIs, right? So in 2015, when you started with APIs and so on. So you kind of put one foot into the customer's door. And when you do that, what is pretty much important is you safeguard their own data. You don't really bombard them with. So coming back to how we do help organizations at Zoho. Zoho is on a mission to democratize IT for organizations or businesses of all sizes and type with customization capabilities. So when you democratize, it's not that you are being rigid here, but also provide them with customization capabilities so you can tailor make based on, Uttransh bank is not equal as an HDFC bank here. So that's one USP of Zoho's application. And BFSI is on the forefront of such an adoption. Secondly, banking is one of the, as I did mention that they are one of the forerunners of IT adoption. There is a fair amount of IT adoption already in place. But how a present-day IT environment clears the clutter is, there are a lot of silos in any organization when it comes to IT. So how do we connect these silos? How do we get the data set to talk with one another? Otherwise, your data is of no or little use in an organization if it doesn't converse with one another. So if you have a proper observability platform in place, that will help you to pave way to giving a quintessential customer experience or a digital experience on the banking apps that you cater to your customers with. And especially when the first conversation we started off with saying AI, right? So for the AI to be put to use, you need to have the data sets talking to one another. And we kind of happy to take up this job of empowering any organization for that matter of fact to not even, not only to interest customers onto banks with their money, but with also data, and we are the platform on which we kind of help people to do that.
Thank you for that. So I think you've touched upon quite a lot here over the course of the conversations we've been having. So maybe if I move kind of to you, Ms. Nikita, a little bit around, you said something about partnerships, and you talked about 24/7 high-value payment clearance, and that's quite impressive. But it requires technology, it requires innovation. A lot of that actually comes not just from your own institution, but also institutions around you that you can learn from, as well as some of the fintechs out there, the technology that the technologists out there that look at these problems differently. What's your perspective on collaboration in this entire ecosystem, and maybe looking at it more from an Indian banking perspective, maybe a consumer banking perspective? How do banks, global banks like yourselves, collaborate with local institutions as well as with local fintechs or even international fintechs to drive some of this capability?
So India will be the third largest fintech market. It's expected to cross $150 billion by 2025. And this itself underlines the potential for collaboration between banks and the fintechs, right? There was a time where banks used to look at fintechs as competition. But I think that mindset has now changed. Everybody understands the potential that collaboration can bring with fintechs, and especially for us to create a more seamless and integrated customer experience. And this, of course, has seen a shift in the way banks are looking at it. We're seeing more partnerships, more joint ventures, even investments by banks in the fintech companies. The best example of what a great collaboration between banks and fintech can achieve is the success of UPI, right? The way they have transformed the retail payments landscape is simply amazing. And I think even if I take a pivot to the corporate banking space, because that's where my organization operates in, even in the corporate banking space, there is a lot of potential to do fintech collaboration in various areas, whether it is digital commerce solutions, embedded banking, digital identity solutions, or simply to create value-added services that can help corporates facilitate better working capital management. I mean, for example, one of the problems that the corporates in India deal with is they are managing manual tasks in their account receivables process. The entire order to cash cycle is full of manual activities, right from invoice generation to collections to the final receivables reconciliation. So a collaboration between a bank like ours and a local fintech partner has helped our corporates to leverage electronic invoice presentment and payment tools, as well as have AI ML based invoice reconciliation solution, which has helped them to achieve 98% accuracy in their receivables reconciliation, accelerate their collections. So this is just one example of what value a fintech collaboration can bring to the table. But ultimately, for any collaboration to work successfully, I think it has to be based on a very strong partnership model that strikes the right balance between innovation, sustainability, and regulation, right? Because banks have a lot of trust and credibility that they have to live up to, and any fintech partnership should augment that and not be detrimental to that reputation. So yeah, I mean, having guardrails that ensure data protection, governance, regulation is as important as being able to create easy or innovative go-to-market models as a part of the collaboration. So it's definitely something that we all should leverage on, but yeah, it has to be done with the right focus and the right partnership mindset.
No, thank you. Mr. Ghosh, maybe you want to build on that, because I think...
I just wanted to say, I just want to reiterate what she said. In fact, State Bank of India, on 2014 onwards, has a FinTech Day. one day a month, where all the fintechs come and present to the IT teams, whatever. And then using that, we can build on. So I use them, Percipient and, if I should take the names, and Quadratics, Percipient from Pune and Quadratics from Hyderabad, to bring my data warehouse transaction levels to transaction plus 1, because we were doing transaction plus 2, 3, like HDFC and all, they were telling me how to go about. But finally, they said we can do it in one day, and they did it. Also in social media, we are ranked number 1 in the world by Brand Finance, State Bank of India, in the terms of numbers, in terms of responses. There also we have received a lot of help from different fintechs to, how to go about things, how to respond, and how to do the platform, the interactive platform, and when they click on the platform, where do they go, how to build those sites and all. So what I'm saying is fintechs are a very powerful organizations with latest cutting-edge technologies which the banks may not always have. So we have to sort of tie up with them to use those technologies.
No, that's perfectly true. And I think, if I talk to fintechs, they just say, give me all your data, give me everything, we'll change the world for you, right? So very, very innovative. But the flip side of innovation is trust and security, which is maybe something I would ask you, Ms. Sujatha, to talk about, because I would strongly believe, there is this kind of this zero trust culture. I'm waiting for the day in India where we have to have an OTP for an OTP to read your OTP, right? So, but how do you balance innovation and security, or how should a bank balance that, particularly in a world where you're kind of opening up your world to the rest of the world?
Yeah, so see, finally in the financial services industry, I think the only thing you bet on is actually the trust, security, and customer service, okay? The point is, effectively, if you come down to it, it's a very commoditized business. If you bring it down to basics, it's a very commoditized business. What is it that you do well is in the area of ensuring you have customer security at the top of your mind, you have customer service at the top of your mind, and you're building the trust of the customer. And I think, while we've been opening up, and I'm one of the biggest proponents of collaboration, but at the same time, I think the security posture of fintechs and banks, if they are not at the same level, I think we'll end up creating a lot of turbulence in the system, and we've seen some breakups happen because of that. The compliance orientation, the security orientation, if doesn't follow the same pattern which is required for building trust, it causes a lot of turbulence. And when you're looking at security, you're looking at 3-4 pivots, right? One is, first, how do you ensure that the customer, when he's getting onboarded, is identified rightly and there is no identity theft? That is the first part, okay? And we do see today, even where it comes to savings account opening, we do see a lot of identity management issues and so on, right? The second part is related to the transaction trust. You have to make sure that the customer's account is not compromised. And there, I think the pivoting is happening. Now there are more layers. You're saying OTP to OTP. I think the layers are increasing because the velocity of transactions has increased so much that, if you get compromised, you can pretty much lose everything in your account, right? So now we have more vectors on which we verify customer identity. So we used to say what you know versus what you have. Today we say things like what you know, who you are, what do you have, what do you know, where you are, what kind of device do you own. So many more vectors have got added to ensure that the security of the customer is not compromised. And then you have, once you identify, you have to ensure that there is no denial of service. So you have to put multiple layers of verification. The only thing you are able to improve now is, I think OTP is now far gone. I think now we are improving on the multi-factor authentication in a more seamless manner, make it more smoother, make sure that you're not getting blank calls from unknown numbers for verifying your identity. Those are the areas of innovation that's happening. But really, can you remove an OTP or a surrogate for an OTP? No, because I think it's very important, and I'd rather, as a customer, somebody checks with me before debiting my account, even if there is friction. In the name of removing friction, if we remove security, I think that's not a great idea. So that's the other piece. And then you anyway have to fortify a bank with all kind of network security, hardware fine-tuning and so on. But I think the core of all of this is the fact that we want to give secure transactions to your customers so that their money is safe, because that's the bedrock of banking. And I think everybody, in fact, RBI today mandates all of this. You don't even have to think, you have to just do what RBI does to secure your transactions. That's how it is.
So coming back to you, Avinash, since it's a very complex problem the business has, it comes back to technology, but I'm just kidding. Can you, just, we've got a few minutes left, a couple of minutes, so just take a little bit of talking about how platforms like yourselves can really truly help banks improve their effectiveness of their operations, the efficiency of their operations, and deliver a very high level of customer experience, while at the same time maintaining a very strong security posture. If you can just take a couple of minutes as we're against the clock here.
Great, thank you. So we see banks especially leveraging us in enhancing their digital experience. Everybody is talking about customer experience, but that customer experience is now being pretty much catered on a digital platform, be it on a mobile platform or a web platform and so on. So this is something that we've been doing. We are trying to enhance our customer experience on a digital platform, and for which you need continuous observability for your optimal performance of your digital assets. So customers these days are spoiled with choices, and they are very less very less forgiving when it comes to bad experience. So I'm not using bad experiences. I'm pretty much stressing on a singular format of bad experience. With one bad experience, they move on to your competition. So with this context, how do we provide them with the innovative digital experiences what banks entrust IT teams with, right? So that's something that we are trying to do. And this is pretty much achieved by having a AI-powered observability platform. And that's something that we are catering to banks, especially from Zoho's standpoint. And this is what we are advocating for. You don't really monitor your IT assets. You don't really look for breaches. Monitoring is more of an afterthought right now. Look for observability. Think about proactive means. It's like this. You have a car dashboard, and everything on the car dashboard might seem to be fine, but it could be one unspotted, a breakage in the system or on the road, which you need a third party, flagging of the danger, right? That's something which we are talking about from an IT standpoint, more from an observability point of view. And this is pretty much can be achieved and applied by means of AI on the top of it. This is what Zoho is doing.
Thank you. As you can see, I think it's been a very rich discussion. I want to thank our panelists for their forthright insights and honest comments around this. I've learned a lot from you, so thank you. But what I've really learned truly is, innovation will continue at pace in India, and the Indian consumer banking sector certainly is going to drive a lot of it for the rest of the world. But I'm equally heartened by the fact that I think we're doing it in a very safe and a very balanced and a very measured way. And, the opportunities are great, but, I think, we're taking a very, very pragmatic approach to doing this. So with that, thank you and sincerely appreciate the conversation. And I've, like I said, learned a lot from you. So thank you. Give a round of applause to our panel. Thank you.
Very informative session indeed. Thank you so much, dignitaries on stage. May I request Ian to hand over small mementos as a mark of respect for our participants on stage. Thank you, Ian, for starting and ending on time. You've really helped the cause.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Ghosh.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And, go to this. Thank you, ma'am. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, ma'am. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Avinash. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. I guess that's mine then. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much once again.